Thank you. Yes, that did get the song on my head. Touch my clogs, bro. My brain just operates on like the last song that I heard. It's like my peripheral, my subconscious is just replaying it. You know what I mean? Jeder Song ein Ohrwurm. Yeah. Touch my clogs. Anyone else for sap? Because I'm just gonna go then. CLOGS. They're my clogs. You see. Oh god. Hmm. Okay, I'm gonna start in a second. Alright. Starting now.
Talking about Hamas, not from the framework of like barbaric rapist monster terrorists, but instead the Viet Cong, because their tactics are closer to the Vietnamese Liberation Front. Their tactics are closer to the
Easy clap.
their tactics are closer to decolonial tactics that the Vietnamese army used. Okay?
Hmm.
Anyway. Yeah, we're gonna change our approach with the IDF is ridiculous.
Now?
Fuck, dude.
We're looking into how it happened, how it came about that these hostages were out, and trying to understand how that happened, whether it was intentional or by Hamas or whether it wasn't intentional. And what we have told
Yeah,
our
my
troops
milkshake brings
is
all the
to
boys to the yard, but
exercise
there turns out the
additional
boys are
caution
fascist.
Pog.
Combustible
when being
lemon.
confronted
6
with
months. Holy
people
moly.
in civilian clothes. Again, part of the complexity here is that
It's like, bro, oh, Hamas is dressed up in civilian clothes. First of all, not a war crime. In this circumstance, it's not a war crime. Okay? Let me explain to you why. In normal situations, if you have a standing military and they're dressed up in civilian clothing, that is a war crime. So if the IDF was doing that, that would technically be considered a war crime. For Hamas, it's not. Why? Just like it's not a war crime on October 7th if you have civilians with
that blue
fucking
jumper,
guns
dude.
or IDF soldiers with fucking guns defending their homes or defending the kibbutz. If they were not dressed up appropriately, that would not be a war crime. Okay? Why? Because all peoples have a right to self-defense. Okay? So Hamas and the Palestinian resistance in general have a right to self-defense. When they are being occupied by a belligerent occupier, when they're being attacked, okay, they not only have a right to self-defense, but they engage in what is known as what is called a spontaneous militia. Okay? Under international humanitarian law, there is a concept called spontaneous militia. So technically, what is going on in the circumstance is that if they are not dressed up with their garb, clearly indicating that they're Hamas, under other circumstances that could be considered, like if they didn't have military uniforms or whatever, that could be considered a war crime. In this situation, it's not. The reason why it's not considered a war crime is because it's technically a spontaneous militia. There are obviously some rules to abide by in this situation, and they're armed. As long as they're armed, it's like considered an enemy combatant.
Sorry, I need
like
to
that.
think about what's being said on stream.
But
sometimes when I just say get wrecked to people, sorry.
Rule under international humanitarian law, technically, Hamas are not engaging in war crimes when they are not clearly marked.
I'm just
or
talking
rather,
about
are dressed up in like military gear.
We're fighting in a civilian environment where almost all of the RPG crews and AED crews that have attacking our tanks and our troops have been dressed in civilian clothes. So it creates a very dynamic and challenging combat environment. And what we have told our troops is to be extra vigilant and do one more safety check.
I told you, my brain is literally like, what was the last song you listened to? And it just doesn't stop.
But it is a very
you know what
challenging
I mean?
environment that our troops are in.
Just to follow.
By the way, if you know that Hamas is engaging in combat with civilian clothing, then the answer should be,
let's see,
that you should be way more careful about who you're shooting at. Not that like you're used to fucking killing all the civilians. So oopsie, sometimes you just kill,
we'll decide.
Other civilians that happen to be
they're
Israeli.
all good.
Follow up on what you said. You said these hostages were out. Can you just expand on that a little bit? What do you mean by that? Just the circumstances around this. And as we just heard our Jeremy Diamond talk about the fact that the rules of engagement have been loosened since the October 7th attack. Do you think that could have played a role in the killings of these 3 Israeli hostages?
Yeah, I don't know what Jeremy bases that on, and I am not aware of any different rules of engagement. Our rules of engagement are those of a military at war against a terrorist organization that uses civilian infrastructure, uses schools and hospitals and mosques and ambulances and all the things that we have seen and you have reported on during the last 2 months. So I'm not aware that we have changed any of our rules of engagement. They are according to the laws of armed conflict and according to our standard practice in war. We will have to look into and analyze exactly what happened. And what I can say so far is that the 3 Israelis, former hostages, they were above ground in Syria in close proximity to one of our units in the area, and then were misidentified as posing a threat, and therefore Israeli troops fired
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately killed them.
Yes, that's what I meant for
This-
Lemon.
Anyway, this is a ginormous fuck up from Israel, okay? Ginormous fuck up. Because let's be real, the Israeli population does not give a shit about Palestinians being killed, no matter what their age is. Okay, come on. We know that from the studies conducted in Israel. There have been two that we've looked at before. One from the Israeli Democracy Institute, another one from, I think it was a university in Israel as well. They don't give a shit. Okay, they don't care. When Palestinians die, when Palestinian civilians die, it doesn't matter if it's collateral damage. It doesn't matter if it's deliberate. They don't give a shit, okay? However, they do care if the IDF kills their own fucking people. They do care about that. So this is another major blow. They care when IDF soldiers die, and they care when they kill their own hostages. So the fact that they're admitting to it is really interesting, and I don't know what will come of it. But as far as like international humanitarian law, I wanted to give you guys like the short and sweet of it, I guess, which is that there are rules for enemy combatants and what they are supposed to follow. But the idea that they're using civilian garb does not change the reality. They are allowed to use civilian garb when they are under attack. As long as they are armed, very clearly armed, and as long as there is a person inside of their command structure that is like telling them to do stuff, go here, go there, that is technically considered a spontaneous militia and therefore valid as an enemy combatant, a valid target to attack for Israel. However, using that international humanitarian law provision to go and attack indiscriminately an entire civilian population that you are a belligerent occupier of, that is not allowed. That is a war crime. That is an act of terror. And of course, in that situation, you're going to end up killing some of your own hostages as well. Of course, we talked about this quite a bit. We talked about the likelihood of this happening quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. You did in the beginning.
Anyway. Yes, they are not valid targets. Israel does not have a right to attack their occupied. No, they are not valid targets in general. Israel is conducting a military operation that is illegal under humanitarian law. There is no retaliation to October 7th that is justifiable. It is not allowed. You cannot do that. The only way to deal with that is by ending the occupation because the occupation is illegal. It is a criminal occupation. So obviously the criminal element needs to be dealt with. And then only after then you can conduct investigations and engage in like actual trials on the people that individually within the Palestinian resistance and Palestinian militias that engaged in war crimes themselves, alongside, of course, the IDF, the Israeli occupying force, and the many war criminals that it harbors as well. But that is the only meaningful way to deal with this problem and create permanent security. Everything beyond that is just a sea of illegality and a sea of war crimes and direct acts of terror that Israel dishes out on top of the Palestinian population that it is a belligerent occupier of, that it is not supposed to be. Anyway.
All right. Even Stevens.
Grand Theft Auto 5 has been downloaded already.
Ooh, okay.
Why do I feel like since the meeting in New York to pass the ceasefire, this has escalated 300%? They just passed a bill in the Senate yesterday basically saying they have a right to spy and propagandize. Makes me wary that we might be next, and I need someone to tell me I'm wrong. I hate this. I don't know what you're talking about, but as far as like the intensity increasing, the violence is increasing and become more personal since the ceasefire ended. Violence has become significantly more personal since the ceasefire ended. And what What I mean by that is that they're not necessarily just shooting, or they're not necessarily just like indiscriminately bombing, which they have continued to do. But on top of that, they are now also engaging in direct acts of terror, like having
Thank
IDF
you.
Israeli occupying
A death thing.
force soldiers.
I'm not going to look at it now.
Terrorists.
Can you please submit it as a reward? Could you do that? Is that possible? Because then it would be much easier for me. There we go. That's what I wanted. In general, it would be much easier for me. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, you found the and clip? Oh my god, you're insane. Wow. How did you do that? Thank you.
Severely wounded,
Now I have to look at it now.
the more the opinion will sour. There's also a massive economic cost to conducting these operations. There's the economic cost of, like,
you went
obviously
deep
the
into finding
Houthis
this.
blocking off certain parts of their certain ports, basically.
Oh, you
with
just
their,
searched the time?
consistent, military operations. Okay, but then there's also
Thank you.
there's also the economic cost of, like, trying to maintain an occupying force of a shit ton of reservists that you have to pay for, that you have to feed. Like, that's not going to. That's not something that you can maintain.
Okay.
America
Well
is
done.
a country that
I've always found it very
basically
difficult to
runs
search the time.
on having endless military occupations all around the world, and even then, there is an economic cost to it. Why was I called by someone from Yemen the other day? What do you mean? How would I know that?
What is the
Anyway.
chatter asking? Yeah, we'll save you, and we will. And my cocks.
What do you think about the Houthis going sicko mode with every
Only got
Israeli
stuck because the
ally?
screenshot
And
was
why
not
are
in
they based?
UCT. Yeah.
Houthis are a very interesting people, I will just say. They are personally saying, fuck it, we are going to do everything we can to make Israel's siege on Gaza as costly as possible.
Okay.
That's their goal. That's their stated goal. That's their
What works for
intention.
me is just
and that's
opening the
what
whole
they're
page
doing.
down with a ton of clips and then search the time. Yeah, I often do that when I'm searching clips in order. The thing is, for me, I'm just like, okay, here's the major issue for me is like, the major issue is just like actually converting the times. I just often am too like.
Since the start of the war. There's also that too.
I just like, you know what I mean.
They're losing their cheap labor force as well.
So normally for those sorts of things, I'll just I'll just work and find it in the VOD because it's easier. Because somebody might not have clipped the moment that you want. Those sorts of things.
But what is the difference here in the Russia-Ukraine war? They just show that the battlefield is littered with bodies close to the coke plant, but Russia never gives up for some reason. What do you mean?
No, the log site doesn't have it in my current time though. A death ain't. It has it in British time. For me, for whatever reason, which is very confusing.
With respect to what's going on in Russia versus what Israel is doing.
Which do you use? The logs IRL site, the same one you use. That you probably used.
Israel hasn't
There's
gotten
only
to the
one.
point where they could just like forcibly release. First of all, Russia has a shit ton of super well-trained mercenaries and different military, like parts of their military apparatus have always been in fucking war globally in like African countries and whatnot. So that creates a very different situation. Like Israel has commandos.
No,
of course.
it's just
like
for some reason
have,
like that log site.
well-trained,
Maybe it's
they have
changed now,
well-trained
but
military,
I haven't checked
they have
recently.
different
It was
parts of their
giving
military
it to
that's
me
well-trained
in
as
British time,
But
which
one,
was frustrating
Russia
with
has more
daylight
people
savings. And
in
I just
general.
like,
They
because
can
I don't
keep
have daylight
fucking,
savings, I just am like, fuck
throwing
it. You know what I
bodies is
mean?
the problem. Israel does not. Two, Russia can also be a little bit more bold in the way that they force people into conscription, whereas Israel is supposed to maintain the presence of being a
They might have changed
democratic
it now.
country, at least for the Israeli Jews that live inside of Israel proper. So
This is such a good
they don't
idea.
have the same bandwidth that Russia does. And also, the Israeli reservists and the Israeli occupying force doesn't have the same massive numbers of like actually specialized units and actually trained units that have a lot of combat experience. You're talking about like
That was
having
so
a police
stupid.
force go in and try to find
I'm such an
try to
idiot.
find and kill people in counterinsurgency
I'm
operations.
such an idiot. Why did I do that?
And you're trying to compare that to like a massive military force with a lot more trained units in it, in a lot larger numbers too.
I think, yeah, for me, it has the message you sent about the new local time. I think
Do you think
know what it
Zelensky's
is.
pissed that the USA is going to keep sending funds and munitions to
I
Israel,
think
which might limit
it's
what they're sending?
when you search for the logs for an entire day, that is in
Can't believe
British time for whatever reason.
these chiefs from going
I don't know.
to the hostage exchange, pushing your enemy further into an even more condensed part of the most dense piece of land in the world while you bomb that place while your enemy has hostages in their grasp, leads your civilian hostages dying. I missed the ceasefire. I mean, I think everyone misses the ceasefire. I miss the ceasefire.
Damn.
There was
Okay,
another
well
aspect
done. I'm
of this
sorry.
that I wanted to cover as well.
I think
Okay.
that's what it is.
Here, I'm going to show you this. I tweeted about this yesterday,
Continuing-
but it bears repeating. Al Jazeera is reporting on the IDF storming another hospital. This one Kamal Adwan. The IDF says it captures 70 Hamas fighters and collected weapons. Al Jazeera reports that the hospital turned over weapons used by hospital security. Every male over the age of 15 was detained. In the weeks ahead of the raid, the hospital was bombed and shelled by tanks and nearly 100 people killed. They were buried in a mass grave, Al Jazeera reports. 9 out of 40 hospitals in Gaza remain operational, and those barely so.
Hospital in the north.
This barely did a fucking blip on... This barely did a blip on Western media, by the way. Gaza healthcare workers taken by Israeli forces says doctor amid horrendous conditions at hospital. Barely a blip in Western media. How fucking nuts. This is something that I brought up. I said it's wild how much time was spent on the Al Ahli hospital and how the IDF would never bomb a hospital only for them to siege Al Shifa immediately after with false claims that it was Hamas headquarters. And now it barely even makes a dent in Western media when they take another hospital because it's become the norm. Okay? That's precisely what's going on here. This happened this week.
Continuing its bombardment. Soldiers have just stormed the Kamal Adwan hospital in the north after laying siege to it for several days. These pictures are from last week, but they show the courtyard where Israeli forces are rounding up all the men in the hospital, including health workers. In southern Gaza, at least 20 Palestinians have been killed in a dawn attack on several homes in Rafah. The Israeli military is pressing on with its offensive and bombing civilian areas. More than 18,200 Palestinians have now been killed since the war began. And meanwhile, in the occupied West Bank, 4 Palestinians were killed in a drone strike during an Israeli raid on the city of Jenin. The Palestine Red Crescent says Israeli forces prevented ambulances from reaching the injured. All of this comes as the United Nations is warning of what it calls a breakdown of civil order in Gaza due to the limited delivery of desperately needed humanitarian aid. Israel announcing it will set up new checkpoints to increase the number of aid trucks entering Gaza, but critics say it will result in significant delays. The UN says at least 200 trucks are needed every day just to meet basic needs. Well, Hani Mahmoud is live in southern Gaza in Rafah for us. So, Hani, first of all, this raid on the Kamal Adwan hospital, what more are you hearing on that?
How do you search by day on the log site?
I want you to understand something. Israel is trying desperately to make it seem as though they're doing a great job with this occupation and this siege this time around. But when you're fucking blowing up hospitals and simultaneously losing a shit ton of soldiers and even commanders, okay? And the only thing you have to show for that is a bunch of people that you apprehended inside of a hospital that are like hospital security forces, for example, that you are falsely claiming are Hamas terrorists, okay? and that's the only thing you have. And you're like literally apprehending like nurses and doctors and shit in broad fucking daylight. And then on top of that, killing your own hostages in the process too. At a certain point, people are going to recognize, no, this is too much of a fucking toll. You guys are fucking this shit up. There's a reason why in Afghanistan, the American media deliberately stopped showing.
Yeah, you have to type it out.
Soldiers coming back in fucking coffins. Okay? When it becomes too costly, when an offensive operation, when an occupation becomes too costly, the population starts souring on the endless violence, no matter how fucking racist they might be. The morale falls apart.
Yes, Hazem. There are more disturbing reports, confirmed reports of Israeli military storming Kamal Adwan Hospital. It's important to point out Kamal Adwan Hospital is a mid-sized hospital, the only remaining health facility in the northern part. And within the past few days, it came under heavy bombardment and airstrikes and tank shell, destroying the vast majority of its.
The thing that they keep doing is like giving weapons to like people that they have disrobed. Okay, like this. I don't know. I can't confirm this.
So
okay?
close.
I have no reasonable way of confirming
So
it
close.
other than just looking at the situation. And I don't understand why the fuck a nurse, a Gazan physician, is arrested and paraded around by the Israeli regime pretending he's a captured Hamas or PIJ fighter. I don't understand why these guys are disrobed, but they simultaneously have guns. Okay, like they're stripping people naked. But then they also have their weapons on them. Like, it feels to me, especially when it's like half the time the people that they're doing this to are like, they have family members, they have people that can account for their existence, that see the situation and go, what the fuck are you talking about? That's a doctor, okay? Like, if you are taking people's, if you're stripping people of their clothes, then what the fuck? Why are they holding up guns? Like, how are they a threat to you at that point?
Humani's just obliterating.
It's faked on purpose. They already disproved one of the videos where the IDF had to do a second take. Yeah, I saw that one where there were more. They pumped this like last week, and then they rescinded it very quickly, where they were talking about how like. There was one guy in this massive group that they had like apprehended, had a bunch of weapons that he like put for, I think like 2 weapons that they put forward or some shit like that. No, this one also 2 takes for this exact photo you were looking at. There's a video where they make them pass the gun along to get pics. They had him walk with 2 different rifles and shot it at the exact same angle. Again, it's evidence of mass surrenders. They keep going on about how Hamas is falling apart. And then anytime this shit happens, anytime this shit fucking happens and they're like, oh yeah, we found a bunch of people that mass surrendered, it comes out that their family members are like, dude, that's a fucking UN guy. Like, that's a UN worker. That's a college professor. That's a fucking UNRWA teacher. That's a fucking doctor. What are you talking about?
Facilities and all the major roads leading to it. Now, there are people who took it as a refuge, a shelter, running away.
And if that was the case, if their numbers were correct, and they had killed 8,000 Palestinian militants, for example, or if they were apprehending Palestinian militants in the hundreds every day as they are surrendering, as the way Israel is claiming it, then how the fuck do you lose 10 commanders in one fucking fight? Do you understand? Like, it doesn't make sense to the population. Like, it doesn't make sense to the Israeli population. You look at the situation, you go, okay, well, I thought we were doing gangbusters out here, but I'm seeing reports on Yediot that there are 5,000 wounded soldiers that are being treated in a hospital right now. I'm hearing reports of like my family members like that are in the IDF, getting killed. What the fuck? How is this happening? If How can you lose? It was 2 commanders, not 10 for clarification. It was 10 soldiers in total. Okay, sorry. 2 commanders and 10 soldiers in total dying is a massive blow to the morale, right? Is a massive fucking blow to the Israeli morale because they think like they're used to not having a lot of casualties because they're used to just like blowing this shit up from afar.
They're my clocks. Don't ever
2 colonels and 3
leave
majors. Obviously, they also clearly have rank inflation because like motherfuckers would be like,
no worries, Darvik.
brigadier general, and the dude is like 23 years old, and you're like, how the fuck did that happen?
From the airstrike, relentless bombardment in their neighborhoods. Now, we're talking about hundreds of people inside the hospital, including the medical team and those who were brought as injuries and the patients in the hospital and 100 other of evacuees inside the hospital. The disturbing reports, what we got from Kamal Adwan Hospital, that the Israeli military on loudspeakers ordering the administration of the hospital to hand in all the guns that the security personnel at the hospital carry in order to protect the hospital. They were collected by the Israeli military. Now, anyone above the age of 15 was also ordered to start evacuating the hospital with their hands above their head. The Israeli military started to blindfold those men inside the hospital, round them up inside the court of the hospital. So far, the situations are very, very difficult for people inside. Just to give a broader picture of what happened over the past few weeks, the hospital came under.
From my experience with my Israeli grandparents, I honestly think the deaths are seen as justified, and just the cost of doing what needs to be done in Gaza. You seem to be under the assumption that this is like before, and the Israeli public really cares about the dead soldiers. Nah, I just know it doesn't matter how racist the population is. I know that this turns casualties of this sort turn any war into a race against the clock. Okay? That's what I know.
Are we waiting for anybody else to start? Because I'm going to start in like 30 seconds.
No matter how racist motherfuckers can be, people will sour very quickly, especially when they're used to a certain level of comfort and security that they have had. You understand? Like, obviously, there's still going to be people that are like, nah, it's great, it's fine, I don't give a shit. But ultimately, there's a cost associated with an ongoing war. There's an economic cost. There's definitely an economic cost. But that puts a fucking clock right on top of this military occupation, this military operation.
Heavy airstrikes and tank shell were almost 100 people killed inside the courtyard of the hospital, and the hospital resorted to digging massive graveyard just to bury them because they could not take them outside the hospital. This is not the first time hospitals are becoming under heavy attacks, but it looks like it's a war not only on evacuation shelters, but also including hospital. We've seen a Shifa hospital, the Indonesian hospital, as well within the past
too much
few weeks.
I don't
it's also
know.
important to point out only 9 out of the
40
hospitals across the Gaza Strip are
unrelenting,
remaining and operating at the low
there's nothing to say at this point, you know what I mean?
I do think the psyche and sensitivity to casualties really changed post-October 7. Also, in most of the large wars, Israel suffered hundreds or even thousands of soldiers killed, such as 2006, 1982, 1973, 1967, etc. Now they suffered 116 killed so far in comparison. 116 in 2 months, though. And remember, 116 killed in 2 months, but also 116 killed when Israel, for a very long time now, has developed the confidence that, like, oh yeah, we can keep this shit going. When your perspective changes over the course of the many years that you have maintained this occupation, I think that there's a level of comfort that you are used to. There's a level of comfort that you're used to that breaks your that makes it much easier for your will to be broken. And that's why I bring up the wounded numbers too, because there's like 116 have died, but there's also a shit ton of wounded soldiers as well.
Hi, Volo.
Part and the southern part of the Gaza Strip.
And Hani,
For reference, Israel is losing soldiers at about 10 times the rate that the U.S. did in Afghanistan. If the war continued for 20 years like Afghanistan, it wouldn't continue for 20 years. The same death rate with Israel would lose 23,000 to the U.S. is 2,400 in Afghanistan. I think there's also a difference between like hiding the truth in a much larger country that is conducting operations overseas, hiding the truth about casualties and the toll it's taken when it's happening directly in your backyard within fucking shooting distance, within an arm's reach. Like, if America was engaging in counterinsurgency warfare in Mexico, that would be a very different calculation. And how many deaths that the public considers to be permissible would be very different than like sending soldiers overseas in a massive country like ours and then them coming back. I believe, as far as IDF death goes, I believe approximately 10% of them have been friendly fire incidents as well. That's true, but if you look at the occupation of southern Lebanon from 1982 to 2000, they didn't pull out for 18 years and after suffering hundreds of killed and thousands wounded. And that was also against non-state actors such as the PLO and then Hezbollah. True.
Orlo.
We'll see. I feel like you're also talking about Israel that was running off the as far as like the international attitude goes. You're also talking about Israel running off the dubs that they took in like the 6-Day War, for example. And the attitude was genuinely different towards Israel back then. The international attitude towards Israel was definitely different in the Western world, specifically back then, as it is now. We're talking like post-failure of the war on terror. We're talking about an Israeli military that is significantly worse. We're talking about, and also what you're referencing is like 1982 to 2000. They're doing the Dahia Doctrine, whereas they're doing it now to Palestinians, but there are also Israeli civilians that are still captive inside of Gaza too. I thought analysts estimate that actually 1,500 have been killed based on the 5,000 wounded and no 20% friendly fire. Oh, it's not 10%, it's 20% friendly fire? Okay.
Oh no, Squirrel Tempura mid-chili. No. Let's go.
We heard as well about airstrikes at dawn today.
Chaotic Lord, thank you for the
Rafah.
3
At
months.
least 20
Holy
killed,
moly.
according to Palestinian medical sources. What are you hearing?
Well, this is another thing, Hazem, that keeps overwhelming health facilities across the Gaza Strip. More airstrikes means more death, more destruction, more displaced people. They end up going to hospitals seeking as a refuge. With that.
Okay, well, I'm going to skip the rest of this. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But the hostage component is like a major part of it. I think I think the hostage component, like the Israeli hostages still being in Gaza, is a big component because Israel does not give a shit in general about.
Let's see.
Yeah, the unpopularity
What
of
happened,
Netanyahu plays a big
Zuccato?
role. Israel still not being able to get the hostages out plays a big role. There's a lot of dissatisfaction. There is a shit ton of dissatisfaction.
Someone posted a
that will
hentai
mount. The IDF
screenshot
is
on
a
OK
profoundly
Buddy.
popular military, obviously.
Great.
Like the
Yeah, of
from
course they
the
did.
Israeli perspective, and yet the more things like this happen, the more
Of
it will
course,
shake
dude.
away the confidence that people have with the IDF. We'll see.
Classic. Of course they did, dude.
And then you have obviously Wild
Yeah, of course. Just
Dahdu,
fucking deny.
the Al Jazeera senior veteran correspondent.
Fucking
that
classic.
that is in hospital right now. He got shot. His cameraman got killed.
My God.
Or no, he was. I guess he was injured in an airstrike. I thought he was. I thought he was shot at. Or his. This is the same one, right? Didn't his cameraman get killed in this attack? Remember, Wiles. I thought he was shot, but Wiles' family was executed with an airstrike. Wiles' entire family was executed with an airstrike that he reported on. Al Jazeera statement on the killing of Samir Abu Dakka. Al Jazeera urges the international community, media freedom organizations, and the ICC to take immediate action to hold the Israeli government and military accountable for these acts of carnage and crimes against humanity. Al Jazeera Media Network condemns in the strongest terms the Israeli drone attack on a Gaza school that resulted in the killing of cameraman Samir Abu Dakka. The network holds Israel accountable for systematically targeting and killing Al Jazeera journalists and their families.
That's insane, Chaotic Lord.
In today's bombing in Han Yunis, Israeli drones fired missiles at a school where civilians sought refuge, resulting in indiscriminate casualties. Following Samir's injury, he was left to bleed to death for over 5 hours as the Israeli forces prevented ambulances and rescue workers from reaching him, denying the much-needed emergency treatment. Al Jazeera Media Network extends its sincere condolences to the family in Gaza and in Belgium, to the late colleague Samir Abu Dakka. With the killing of Samir Abu Dakka, the number of journalists and media workers killed in Gaza reached over 90. 90! Al Jazeera urges the international community, media freedom organizations, and the International Criminal Court to take immediate action to hold the Israeli government and military accountable for these acts of carnage and crimes against humanity. Now, it's not just in Gaza where this is fucking happening, okay? It's not just in Gaza where this is happening. It's happening in the West Bank as well, in fucking broad daylight, here.
Oh,
Israeli
this is
forces
insane.
severely assault Palestinian journalists live on CNN Turk. Shoot me, the journalist screams. They go on to punch, strangle, and throw him on the floor and kick him. Here it is.
Olası bir hareketlenmeye
I'm not
karşı
going to
da
show that.
görmüş olduğunuz gibi yolun giriş ve çıkışlarını tutmuş durumda ve hiçbir şekilde basının fotoğraf çekmesine, video görüntüsü almasına.
They're saying they're not allowing the press to actually take photos and to film. Here's the press release, the latest updates. Government Information Office in Gaza says 89 journalists were martyred in the Gaza Strip as a result of the ongoing Israeli aggression since October 7th. 89. And they're doing the same shit, not only in the Gaza Strip, but in the West Bank as well. This is footage from the West Bank. This is footage from Jerusalem. Specifically, it says Kudüs.
Ali şu müdahaleye bakar mısın ya?
The commentator's like, look at the way they're fucking behaving.
Aslında çok şaşıracak bir şey yok. Tam da İsrail polisine uygun müdahaleler bunlar.
The commentator says, actually, it's not very surprising. This is precisely how the Israeli forces operate. This is precisely how they operate.
Ve bunlar meslektaşlarımız bu arada. Her hafta beraberiz.
He says these guys are our co-workers. We see them every weekend. We're
Görmüş
together
olduğunuz
every
gibi
weekend.
yine o sert müdahalelerden biri başladı.
My
Ve bu
goodness.
müdahaleyi basına yapıyorlar. Şunu da ifade edelim.
And they're doing this to the press. They're behaving like this
Bu
towards the
arada Arap
press.
basını. Onlar Kudüs'te gazetecilik yapan meslektaşlarımız.
It's
These
just,
are
I just...
our co-workers that are in the press in Jerusalem.
Yine bir fiziki müdahale var. Bağırmaması konusunda uyarıyor ve
It's just that you're at the point where you've got no... What do you even
They're
say?
yelling at him to not. They're yelling at him to not
şu an
yell.
meslektaşımızın boğazını sıkmış durumda. Sadece aşağıya geçmek istediler ve bir yumruk daha attı. İkinci yumruk.
They're hitting him in the head and they're choking
Görmüş
him.
olduğunuz gibi İsrail polisinin şiddeti, dehşeti.
Saying you can see the Israeli police and their inhumanity, their violence.
Devam ediyor. Böyleler.
This is how they treat people.
Hiçbir şey ayırt etmiyorlar ve şu an tetiği çekti.
Look, he literally fucking
Silahın ucuyla vurdu.
he hits him with the gun.
Muhtemelen, evet. Müdahaleler tam olarak böyle oluyor değerli izleyenler. Bakın silahın tetiğini çekti.
He
Vur
goes,
beni dedi.
come on,
Arkasını
shoot
döndü.
me. He says,
Gazeteci
come on, shoot me.
boğazını sıktı ve yere yatırdı.
And then he chokes him and slams him to the ground and starts
Görmüş
kicking
olduğunuz
him in the
gibi çok
head.
sert müdahaleler.
That's a journalist, dog.
Just
That's what they're doing to fucking journalists in Jerusalem,
insane.
dog. Think about that. Most moral army, my fucking ass. Suck my dick.
Var. Çok sert müdahaleler var. Çok sert müdahaleler var.
They're just beating the shit out of him.
İşte gazeteci, Müslüman, sivil ayırt etmeksizin buna benzer silahın ucuyla
Now
çok
they're
sert
going to the
vurdu.
cameraman.
Halil geri çek. Halil geri gel. Halil geri gel.
He's telling the cameraman to, Halil is his name, pull back, pull back, pull back.
Gel Halil. Okay. Okay, calm down. Okay. Okay. Okay. Okay. Şu an silahın tetiğini bile bize doğrultmaya
He's trying to tell him, like, okay.
başladı. Şu an sağlıkçılar geldi. Ne yazık ki çok üzülerek söylüyorum ki bir meslektaşımız çok ciddi bir şekilde yaralandı.
Yeah, he's like almost in fucking tears talking about
No, they
how,
won't be
like,
held accountable. It's very clear.
The medics are on scene. One of our colleagues have been
Disgusting. Like,
severely,
just unbelievably disgusting. Like, I don't even know what to
severely
say.
injured. Did you learn Hebrew? No, man. They're speaking in Turkish. These are Turkish journalists. This is Turkish press.
Turkish
They're
press.
from CNN. This is CNN Turk.
CNN Turkey.
Isn't this a war crime because the journalists are protected? Brother, what are you saying? The Israeli army does not do anything that isn't a war crime. They only do war crimes.
Literally.
If they don't do a war crime, it's probably by accident. Okay? Sometimes they accidentally do something good and then they're like, oh, fuck, we fucked up. Boys, we fucked up. We were supposed to do a war crime. And now we accidentally did not do a war crime. Let's do it. Let's do more war crimes to fucking make up for it.
Sanity.
Is there a difference in IOF and IDF? No. People call, myself included, we call the Israeli Defense Force, which is their official name, the Israeli Occupying Force, which is what they actually do. If you hear someone call it the IOF, myself included, know that you are probably talking to someone who is correcting the record. The Geneva Conventions is a to-do list for the Israeli occupation force. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I showed you this day one. Like, we looked at the international with the international standards of like what it means to do genocide, right? According to the Geneva Conventions, like, and it's a laundry list. Anyway, everybody wants me to watch this fucking guy, Greg Stoker, U.S. war veteran, explains why the IOF is losing so many officers and so little to no soldiers. So I'm gonna watch it. I usually don't like
atrocities
videos like this, but sure, I'll fucking watch it finally because everyone is losing their goddamn minds over it when they should be losing their minds over the top of the hour ad break that they're not prepared for, because at the top of the hour there's a 3-minute ad break, and if you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free with the Twitch Prime. Or maybe you are prepared for it, and that's why you're not losing your mind. Here's the 3-minute ad break now, though.
continue to mount in the Strip. The IDF just released the names and ranks of casualties from today, and it is wild. There's a lieutenant colonel, 3 majors, a captain, 2 non-commissioned officers, and then a pretty high-ranking non-commissioned officer. And you might be like, wait, where are all the privates and the corporals and the lower enlisted? Well, I'm going to get to that. I'm going to unpack this whole thing. But this is Stalingrad, dude. This is Stalingrad. This is a battle everybody studies because it was a huge blunder for the German army. They invade Russia, and they bomb and shell Stalingrad into rubble. Sounds familiar. And one of the biggest advantages the German had were their tanks and their armored vehicles, which, because of the rubble, couldn't really maneuver the way they should have. And they really nerfed themselves against the Russians because the Russians knew their own rubble of their own city better than they ever would. So they had like ambush positions, fixed fighting positions, and scary sniper positions. And that is actually one of the defining aspects of the battle, because these Russian snipers would just target the officers and leave the lower enlisted men alone. And, you know, it would break morale as their officers kept having to get replaced over and over.
Yeah, except like the Israeli military, 1, has rank inflation, 2, increases the ranks post-mortem, and 3, I don't know if they're doing that. I don't know if they're like specifically using snipers to target some of the higher ranking officers to like hit the Israeli morale
over and over again. The only time you see casualty profiles just like this is with snipers. Lieutenant Colonel, Golani Brigade's 13th Battalion. Major, Golani Brigade's 13th Battalion. Major, Golani Brigade's 51st Battalion. So on. This usually speaks to military incompetence because the officers have to go to the front lines and expose themselves in order to deal with a certain type of situation that no one else can figure out. And this happens when you don't have a very strong officer or non-commissioned officer corps. So like in Ukraine, that's why we were seeing so many like generals and field grade officers being taken out by snipers, because they'd always have to be going to the front to deal with situations. And then the Ukrainian snipers would just take them out. And when that was going on, CNN, MSNBC, Fox had every military advisor pundit saying the same thing on live TV. However, you're not going to be seeing any military advisors on these news networks talking about the same exact procedure. They're just creeping through the ruins, taking out field grade officers and leaving the lower enlisted alone. That's actually very disciplined and sophisticated. When we're talking about military incompetence, I want you to look at the ages of these people. Lieutenant Colonel, 35 years old. One of my best friends was a West Point artillery officer. He didn't even make major until that. We have two majors who are 23 years old. What? That's insane. We have a 19-year-old sergeant. I was still in basic training when I was 19. I didn't even make sergeant.
What?
Yeah, it's because it's rank inflation. This officer inflation is biting them in the ass on the PR front. Makes it seem like Hamas is able to get their most experienced and seasoned fighters. I think, okay, this analysis is completely wrong. The ranks are high because post-death they're promoted. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Also, the vast majority of the ranks are not majors, etc. And are not this high. I agree with Elent News on this. This is what I was trying to say, that like they already have like massive fucking rank inflation. It might actually, I don't know, make the Israelis feel like the deaths are more devastating or whatever, but ultimately it's just, I don't think these are experienced guys that are getting murked is what I mean. With the exception of the 35-year-old. They have both rank inflation and they have post-mortem boosts too.
And the Rangers until I was like 22. They're just a bunch of kids with no training. I mean, this makes a lot more sense. Well, there you have it, folks. You're not defeating Hamas with that when nobody in the military has the maturity or the practical experience for the positions they're supposed to be occupying. That's why no progress is being made, but the only thing they can do is listen to their gospel AI targeting program and drop the bombs where it tells them to drop the bombs. Seriously, just a bunch of thugs with a bunch of weapons and advanced gear that they don't deserve and that are too good for them. Oh yeah, and here's a picture of soldiers from that Golan Defense Brigade.
The Golani soldiers, by the way, are like this is supposed to be an elite force, right? They fucking ripped this force.
It's been getting sniped so hard.
Have one more
this is
round
them
after
inside
this.
the Hamas parliament, you know, just taking victory pictures for the fans back home. Man, you guys are really asking for it. Freaking 23-year-old majors? Like, what is this, the 19th century British colonial army where you can just purchase commissions if you're wealthy enough?
I said this before, the way Israeli media covered it was that it was reported at the time that an IDF soldier may have been kidnapped in the combat zone, so high-ranking soldiers which were in the area jumped to try and save him as fast as possible, only to walk into some sort of trap. Yeah, I heard that it was like 2 waves, right? 2 waves of explosions. Isn't that how that works?
Yeah, the energy is
Something like
it is very
that.
odd. Like, I mean, like this guy's he's criticizing the IDF. I don't know what his stance on Palestine is.
OPSEC who needs it? No, this is not OPSEC. The reason why they're posting those photos is because that is to galvanize the audience at home. Yeah, again, the issue is they entered houses with IEDs and it was blown up. Then the rescue team got it. I think an army would have an issue with buildings wired to blow. I think any army would have an issue with buildings wired to blow, etc. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it was critical of the IDF tactics. He was like saying this is like
occupying force is not as well trained.
He's criticizing like what they essentially just like basically saying what they're doing is cruel with the only thing that they can rely on is their bombs. So that's
As a police
so they're
force,
carpet bombing, of course.
you are withering away your military when their most experience comes from being a fucking cop. If you took the New York Police Department and put them in a fucking war zone where people are actually shooting back at them, their target hit rate in active shooting situations is 17%. Okay, the NYPD supposed to be a standing army, larger than some of the militaries of other countries. They have a submarine, multiple submarines. NYPD active shooting target hit rate is 17%. Okay, 17%.
17%. Holy fuck.
You put them in front of motherfuckers wearing sandals who have nothing to lose, and all they want to do is purge you from their fucking country in an environment that they are not familiar with. They're going to get their shit pushed in. And the IDF knows this, which is precisely the reason why they don't actually engage in a lot of like combat such as this one. They literally level entire areas, and then they bring in the fucking armor. They bring in the armor, and then at the very last moment, they have actual infantry out and about. And even then, that infantry is still susceptible to IEDs and shit like that.
Go to bed, James Genius Goof. What you doing, dude?
Now, of course,
it's not such a genius move, dude.
Units like Golani and Gavati are constantly training for this, as do armored cops. That's why tanks are never seen in the West Bank, because most of these units don't deploy there. It's a lot of other infantry units, and especially border police, that do West Bank stuff. Ultimately, out of all of the fucking brigades that they have, yes, you're gonna have more experienced. You're gonna have more experienced troops. But if you're, I mean, they have 300,000 reservists, like 300,000 reservists that are not even doing internal security at that point. They trained as internal security. They trained as police, basically. They cycled, and then they cycled out, and they fucking went into, they went into do their regular work. They became normal civilians. They have jobs. They're used to eating a fucking warm meal. They're not 19-year-old psychopaths hopped up on go juice, sent into Afghanistan, ready to fucking kill. Even those guys who are inexperienced overall, okay? Even those fucking guys who are inexperienced overall at least have like less of a life to live beyond just like murdering people. If you're 23 years old and you've been out of service for like 2-3 years, you have a wife and children, you're used to eating falafel on Fridays, and you have an advertising job, and now you're fucking going back into Gaza, you're gonna be like, this sucks. I don't want to do this. I have a comfortable fucking life. I think that's one of the major differences within like what Israel is doing and what Israel is Israeli forces they're sending out.
Oh, I got my hearts confused with my
like
money.
The American military in Afghanistan.
That was
and even the
stupid.
American military would have a hard time in Gaza as well. Aren't conscripts getting dysentery because they refuse to eat MREs? Yeah. Well, they don't have like adequate refrigeration for the food that like civilians are sending to the front lines.
Damn.
So yeah, and they don't have clean water either. So they keep getting sick. And the Gazan water is not. You can't drink the Gazan water; it'll kill you. Anyway. Did Noah Smith yet again reinvent BDS? If Israel rejects a two-state solution, we should just withdraw our support, let them fend for themselves. We should never support conquerors. Dude, Noah Smith popping off on the timeline reinventing boycott, divestments, and sanctions on Israel twice in the last 2 months. What a phenomenal moment, dude. That's twice now. He invented BDS like a month ago when he read one article from Chodemer on The New Yorker about how fucking nutty the settlers were and was like, what the fuck?
Well done, Lily.
Any person that has an opinion such as this one doesn't deserve a single dollar from me. And I was like, that's great. Congratulations for, coming to terms with something that like a lot of pro-Palestinian activists have known for many, many fucking years. Noah Smith going to reverse engineer Marxism and you're out of a job? Yeah, I know. I do love this. I mean, I celebrate that he is like coming to this conclusion, but it is pretty funny to me where it's like, no, man, we knew about this already. Like you're figuring this shit out right now.
Yeah, really, truly one of the greatest minds of our generation.
This has some real like just finding out about Israel being kind of racist. He's like just finding out about this Israel stuff seems kind of racist. These guys, I don't know.
Hold on. Literally Hassan's first TikTok ever. Trying to find it.
We all take our own path, be nice. I just don't think he's being that genuine overall. I think he's just like, he is already geared towards
Can someone
hating the left.
who's watching on mobile, because I keep on
people
scrolling down to Hassan's TikToks and I
any
literally
sort
can't
of
find
like
it.
serious way of analyzing these kinds of things from a moral framework that makes them go, oh, this is unacceptable. I don't care. We have to stop this right now. They usually look at it from their own incredibly personal framework of like, are the people who I hate the most supporting this position?
I'm trying to scroll down in Hassan.
Are the people who are against
this
position being really fucking annoying? Like,
fuck.
Like
that's Hassan's first TikTok ever.
That's usually how like a lot of Americans treat this shit.
And I'm scrolling down on the TikTok app and it won't allow me.
Hold
on,
let
me
internet
try.
Commentators that you
on
probably have seen or watched, like most of their framework is completely guided by who annoys them or who they hate, and not like a real moral consideration for the death toll, for the casualties. And then
because the TikTok app is so
bad.
bad.
Of them will simultaneously project and say, "I do
You're
that."
gonna thank me
like,
for this.
No, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck what your background is. In the beginning of
the Vaseline bottles
this entire thing, there were a lot of people who were like shitting on Bosch, for example, in my community, and I said, no, Bosch historically has been pro-Palestinian, maybe even to a degree that is like goes above and beyond. Literally got banned from Twitch for saying certain things back in the day, but like he has raised money for the PCRF. He has been very consistently on the right side of this issue, right? And I admit that. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit about like petty grievances of other sorts when it comes down to someone being on the right side.
Thank you, Tiamani.
Huh. Anyway. It is literally your first ever TikTok? What is this?
Just found out about the extraction of surplus labor value. Damn. That shit sucks, dude.
Yeah. Poppin'.
Told you, literally. Damn. That shit sucks.
CEO of capitalism shaking right now in his boots. Capitalism, knock it off.
Thanks you, Tiamani.
No, back then that shit was actually popping. Anyway. So, have you seen Malcolm Nance's timeline? No, I don't want to even touch Malcolm Nance with a 10-foot pole. So, Chatter saying code, but it has like 40K likes. I know.
No, it wasn't.
Oh my god. Dr. Eli David is one of the. What does he have a doctorate in? Being a fucking clown ass, dude? He says some of the most racist shit I've ever seen. He's always just like popping off with the dumbest shit. A lot of the Hasbro stuff, just
God.
in my opinion,
Okay, I'll be back in a second.
is so
Join
coded
for
a
SAP.
population that already has like that already has to be tuned in to your level of racism. Like, sure, it might get you some likes, but I think a lot more people see that and go, ugh, gross.
And the first and probably most important is the political paradigm. The political paradigm was.
Ami Ayalon is the former head of Shin Bet, the Israeli FBI kind of.
That since we cannot solve the conflict
NSA.
between us and Palestinians, all what we did failed. So the only way to do it now is managing the conflict. So the policy was managing the conflict and not to try to solve it. And in order to do it, we had to do something which we call divide and rule. Meaning we have to make sure that Palestinians will not have a unified leadership.
Welsh is not,
make
Welsh
sure
is
that
not good.
we should always be able
I don't think
to
Hassan
say
keeps
that
up with.
nobody to talk with, nothing to talk
Anyway.
about. And in order to do it, we had to make sure that Hamas will go on controlling Gaza, and the Palestinian Authority,
Any last sappers?
supported by Fatah, will go on leading Palestinians in the West Bank, and they will create a conflict. You know, they will, in a way, almost fight each other.
He means divide and conquer? Yes. Yes. That's precisely what he means. That's what he's saying. Bro, who is this talking skeleton?
this?
That
Yeah, I
talking
did.
skeleton
I
is
retweeted
like
it.
the fucking former Israeli NSA guy, okay? The head of the Israeli NSA. What he's saying is what I've been saying since October 7 and what I've been saying nonstop ever since October 7 especially, which is that Israel's arrogance in the way that it has maintained its occupation has caused a shit
Are we
ton
waiting for anyone
of
else?
problems for Israeli citizens. Israel's maintenance of the apartheid and the political dealings with leadership within the Palestinian civil governance has caused this issue. They think, just like we talked about with Benjamin Netanyahu, Hassan, I'm such a big stand for you. One day I will sleep in your garage with your consent. No. I do not give you this consent. Remember when I told you that the Israeli no partner in peace narrative is fucking bullshit, and it's one that Israel itself
Only
has
Baller is allowed to
created?
post like that.
This is basically him repeating that framework that Israel very deliberately chose to utilize the Palestinian
Was the chatter
Authority
named a car?
as a part of
Maybe.
its own security apparatus as it pushed it down, right? So that anyone that actually fucking cooperates with Israel is not going to get real gains for the Palestinian population, and people who don't cooperate with Israel that are declared terrorist organizations like Hamas will get funding, which, by the way, Netanyahu did send money to Hamas as well, for the record. This was a
upside down
major
balls,
point
of
of
course.
contention. Netanyahu himself propped up Hamas as the only entity to negotiate with and the only serious entity to take seriously, which, of course, is seen by the Palestinians as well. Palestinians look to any kind of militant retaliation towards Israel's occupation as an objective good. Why wouldn't they? Of course they're going to see that.
And in order to do it, we had to do all what we did, enhancing or assisting Hamas, transferring money, enabling people to work in Israel, etc., etc. And probably without our intention, we found ourselves strengthening Hamas and weakening Palestinian Authority. Once we did it, what we saw on the Palestinian street,
And I was like, maybe
that,
it's a weird
Hamas,
idiom, and it was just I live
is
underneath
getting
your
support,
house,
Palestinian support, because they became the only
bro.
group or administration in the eyes of the Palestinians who fought against the Israeli occupation.
Wallo's the only
And, in
chatter
order to
to have
achieve
done that
Palestinian
and not
freedom.
ever like gotten banned. I'm
So,
amazed you didn't get
on
banned
the
still
other
to this day,
hand,
Wallo.
Fatah and Palestinian Authority were perceived by Israeli collaborators because until today, they refuse formally to use violence. And although they are very weak, they still are trying from time to time to fight Palestinian terror.
My vibes were good,
especially in
yeah.
Jenin, Nablus.
Yeah. The Palestinian Authority, by the way, he obviously is like fucking biased against the Palestinians. I just want to point that out. But the Palestinian Authority, as I've told you, is like literally collaborating with the Israeli government, with the Israeli occupying force to apprehend Palestinian militants in Jenin who are legally well within their rights to operate within the Jenin refugee camp and are basically the functional militia of the Jenin refugee camp in the West Bank. So when the Palestinian Authority sees that as a threat to their own power and collaborates with the Israeli government and collaborates with the Israeli occupying forces and then turns around and literally fucking gives the Israeli occupying forces like information about both the Jenin brigades, but also on top of that, the children that throw rocks and whatnot. Of course, the fucking Palestinian population is like, get the fuck out of here, fuck you.
Fuck you, yeah, exactly.
It is no mistake that Abbas has a 7% approval rate, or is 7%. Less than 7%. It's like his approval ratings in the fucking minuses, but only 7% of the Palestinian population say that they want Abbas. Only 7%. And now the dumbasses in America are literally, yeah, you have literally been saying what the Shin Bet guy is saying, and freaks are calling you a terrorist sympathizer for literally saying what this guy is saying. Are they going to call this Shin Bet guy a Hamas simp too? No, because the reason why, they don't fucking know anything. The people that call me a terrorist sympathizer are just like, half of them don't even know where Israel's on a map, okay? Like, they're just simply angry and want to take a position that is anti whatever the fuck I'm saying. If I turned around,
can't believe there was an
anti-Hassan
like
they'd probably be like out there
in the NIMS Awards still to this day.
Okay? They don't give a fuck. It's just stupid. It's just petty shit. Fuck those guys.
Wherever they can. They cannot do much.
Can't believe
because,
it.
as I said today, and this is a great change, big change from the 90s, between 70 to 80% of the Palestinians are supporting Hamas only because Hamas is perceived as the one who fight for its freedom. This paradigm led us to a kind of intelligence.
Best not to bring up that particular person in the chat. The filters are there for a reason, to protect this community.
Is the third. Now, why Hamas is the third? By the way I understand it, in order to agree or to accept this assumption, it makes sure that you do not understand and you do not know what is Hamas all about. Because the way I see it, we Israelis are measuring hardware, and they measure.
I love Tassan getting the mention. So yeah, of course he's gonna love it.
After every round of violence or a military campaign.
This part's really important. You need to understand this. This part's really important.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Hamas
Yeah,
when their
you wouldn't
fucking
you wouldn't have
people
been able to
die, when
type it.
Hamas
It's
Muslims
blocked
die,
words, so that's
a
why I
victory.
thought you were going around it.
Okay, that's seen as a victory by Hamas. That's seen as a victory by the Palestinian population because Hamas presents its cause as just.
No worries.
Okay. So ultimately, when 10 Hamas militants die, that is seen as an objective good. That does not actually demoralize the Palestinian population. That doesn't demoralize Hamas.
Volo, are you still watching?
10
If you want to go live, I'll raid
force
you after this game.
soldiers die, though. It's not a 10 versus 300 situation at all. You can have 10 Israeli soldiers fucking die when they're killing 300 Palestinians. Okay? And that's not seen in the same way. That's not reflected
the reasoning.
in the numbers. That's
I was
not
going to
seen
go
as
live in
like
like
a
an hour and a
positive thing
half.
by the Israeli government in the same way that it is by Palestinians.
Measure their losses.
No, don't stress.
In human
Yeah,
life,
probably won't be live then.
in military installations and in military
Just raid
infrastructure.
someone else. I shall do so.
And
I want to find someone random to
on
raid.
the other hand, what they measure the support of the people,
Someone I've never raided
the
before.
support of the Palestinian street.
And this is precisely the reason why, as far as Hamas goes, like their popularity has increased dramatically over the course of the past
Omega
2
racist,
decades,
like
okay?
Yeah.
Their popularity has only increased.
Chibley's live.
Obviously,
Oh, okay, we can raid
decreases
Chibley.
in
Yeah.
times when they're just like mostly comprised of
Chibley.
civil
We can raid
governance
Northern Line,
duties, when
actually.
what they're doing is like civil governance. But
Maybe
their
eventually, if I raid him
popularity,
more and
especially
more,
in the
he'll
fucking West
recognize me.
Bank,
Because that, you know, I want to clout chase Northern Line.
dramatically
brings
increased.
all the boys to the
Hamas
yard,
is
but
more
it turns
popular
out
in
the
the West
boys are
Bank
fat.
than
Thank
it is
you,
in Gaza.
Berkeley Pitts
It's
Power
still
Swimmers. Thank you for
also, for the first
continuing
time
the
ever,
gifted
reached
sub that you got from
50% popularity
Dr. Slippy
in
Fist.
Gaza,
Thank you. I
above
really
50%
appreciate that.
popularity in
I
Gaza
really appreciate
since
that.
October 7th.
Now, this assumption that Hamas is deterred was based on the idea that yes, on the May 21, they suffered a huge loss.
Jazzabird is live
and
already
a huge
yesterday. I'll have a
military
look
defeat.
through all of the people I
But on
follow.
the other hand, we did not read
What
the.
do
But
you
also,
mean?
I
What is
still
the
have a whole
context of
game
this?
to
Is
play.
this
Don't
Zoom
stress,
call?
everyone.
Is this from a news outlet or is this league? Brother, this man's this happens all the time. They openly talk about this shit. It just gets buried. Let me tell you something. People within the security forces within Israel regularly talk about their military failures. It's just that it oftentimes gets buried in a overarching sea of
Oh my god, you thought I was on call with them?
other information that's like
Oh my God, that's
way
funny.
more important for the public to see. It's not like a hidden thing. This is a normal
like
conversation
cops.
that they have for the Carnegie Endowment. Okay, streamed 4 days ago. This is not like a secret Zoom call or some shit. Look, that's why they have chyrons and like their names are visible here. The reason why he's revealing this information is the very same reason why former Shin Bet officials always go out and fucking do documentaries and stuff like that. Yeah. And also, Shin Bet, which apologized, which apologized like after October 7th for their military or for their security failures, had back in March of this year openly stated to the Likud-led government that their like Itamar Ben-Gvir's behavior and Itamar Ben-Gvir's interest in the West Bank was going to cause a massive a massive national security problem for Israel. This was written in Haaretz. It's not like this wasn't known. They openly said it. You want to know how the fucking Likud government actually responded to it? They responded by saying, "You guys are too woke." It's like if Donald Trump came out and said to the head of the NSA, like, "Y'all are too fucking woke, man.
Sure.
Y'all are too woke. The deep state has infiltrated the NSA. They're too woke," which Donald Trump has done, by the way, which is why not that out of pocket. Let's be fucking real.
Don't understand. Spend up to 2 gold and gain it back next turn. I've spent gold. I don't gain it back. What the fuck are you talking about? How is
And
the
Khalid
magpie
Khaki
beneficial?
Pulse,
I should have 12,
showed
right?
us a horrible picture in which it was the first time in which Hamas got
Oh, if
more
you
than
don't spend it.
50%
Oh, I
of the
see.
Palestinian,
So
of the
silly.
support of the
Okay,
Palestinian
I get
people,
it.
when Abu Mazen
I see.
became
Okay,
between
okay,
20
okay,
to
okay.
25% of the
I was like,
Palestinians.
what
So
the fuck?
after every round
Okay.
of violence, after every military
Shit,
campaign,
I actually should have
we
sold that.
say, okay, from now on, they are deterred for several years,
Oh.
and they understand it as a huge victory.
He says another key clause was the new Middle East plan presented by Biden because Palestinians were not mentioned. To him, this was a major mistake because
I didn't
literally
watch
just
it.
everything I've said since October 7th.
Biden.
I actually
being
did
repeated
watch.
by a fucking dude
No,
who
okay, so now I should
spent his
gain it back.
entire life being like the head of
I actually did
Israel's,
watch Northern
national
Lion talk about the
security
magpie.
apparatus. It's so funny. Things that people have fucking
It's actually
called
really
me
good.
a terrorist supporter
but-
being repeated verbatim by this dude.
I just
The new Middle East,
so I should get it back
presented
then.
by Biden
Okay.
several weeks before, from the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean, without Palestinians. Palestinians were not mentioned. Now, if you ask me the way I understand Palestinians, we do not see, first of all, that they see themselves as a people, a nation, and second, they feel
Okay, sick. Okay, that's sick. That is
alone.
sick.
They feel abandoned. They felt that they were abandoned by all the Arab states who signed peace with us without doing anything about it. And now America, with
This is going to be really bad, but I will.
the state
Let's see.
that founded the Arab Peace Initiative, they are going to give up on the holy places in Jerusalem and on Palestinian state. This is exactly what they felt. And they could not. I mean, I spoke with
We'll
Halil,
see.
you mentioned him,
We'll see.
1 week later. And he said, Ami, you do not understand. They choose Samson option because they felt that they have nothing to lose. And this is the only way for
Oh,
them
cool,
to
Prez.
show to the world
Okay, cool. Already.
you will not be able to create stability in this region if you will bypass Palestinians.
I mean, Ayalana's a 30-month Hassan Abi subscriber. Bro, verbatim. In 6 minutes, this dude rehashed every single thing I've said for the past 2 months. Every single thing I've said for the past 2 months that have caused so many motherfuckers to leave this community, call me a fucking terrorist, say that I'm like dick riding Hamas, say that like I fucking hate Jews and all this shit. The Shin Bet guys were always the most clear, logical thinking people in the Israeli security apparatus when it comes to Israeli actions against Palestinians. They're the ones who work with the most Palestinians in the West Bank and the PA. They see the products of their actions. Yes. Bar for bar.
And the tragedy is that they succeeded.
Yeah. It's almost as though I know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about because I actually read this shit
Hold on.
and don't just make stuff up and pull it out of my asshole. But some fucking drama, some drama perverted psychopathic fucking YouTuber with like no discernible political opinion can so easily come in here and be like, "Fuck, you suck, dude. You're a fucking liar." And then every single person that's a Hassan hater will just like look at that situation and jerk off to it. I hate the space that I occupy on the internet. I hate it. Anyway, he compares Israel's current strategy to that of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Oh my God, it's so bar for bar. ISIS real.
I'm not psychologist. I'm not sure I totally understand, but I think that one of the scenarios, we have too many
Time to get rid of the magpie. I
chaos
know.
agents.
I just feel bad because it didn't like ever use its full potential.
I
but
hear
like
in the television. Some of them used to be my friends, and they explain me and us and all of us that our goal, not military.
Wasn't the Palestinian leaders historically who rejected most of the peace deals and two-state solutions? Fuck no. That's bullshit. No, that's not correct, man. That's not correct. No.
Our political goal should be to create a human disaster in Gaza. Because from the chaos, we shall start again. And I can tell you, David, Aaron, that this is exactly the theory of the most radical, fundamental Muslim organizations. This is exactly the theology and the strategy of ISIS and of Al-Qaeda. From the chaos, we shall survive. And I'm afraid that what Ephraim rightly said,
Exactly, I think.
all of us who studied something in any university.
He says that many people in the current Israeli leadership set as a political goal to create human disaster in Gaza because from the chaos we shall start again. He says this is exactly the theory of the most radical fundamentalist Muslim organizations. This is exactly the theology and the strategy of ISIS and Al-Qaeda, as I've said as well, which, by the way, remember, Israel has unironically aligned with al-Nusra in the past, like Al-Qaeda cutouts, obviously, like they have literally worked with them. So that was also hilarious when Israel was like, oh, Hamas is ISIS, Hamas is ISIS, Hamas is ISIS, when like, yeah, motherfucker, except Hamas has killed ISIS people inside of Gaza. Israel has worked with ISIS-style organizations openly.
I don't know what accelerationism is.
Understand that you cannot send youngsters to war without defining a political goal.
I want my editors to cut a video where like they just put exactly what Ami Ayalon is saying and then superimpose it with like me saying verbatim, bar for bar, the exact same shit with like dates.
A military goal is never the end goal. Military is a tool. War is not
No, that's not me. I'm not one of Hassan's editors.
objective. And political goal and
Not me.
the essence of victory. Victory is never measured in
No, I'm not getting paid for
military
that.
terms.
They can.
So when we say the day after, we are trying to define the concept, the idea of victory. And we are not doing it. It's a huge,
It's just very
huge
random,
failure.
this guy.
No joke, I think people hate you the most because you're usually right from the jump and they take the long way to get to your point.
I'm not a mod, I'm a VIP.
No, I think there's more to it. It's because I'm very
Hey.
condescending and very angry and I get very passionate. And I hurt a lot of people when I do my commentary. I think
VIP,
like that,
get on it. Hi, Box
that
Bot.
certainly plays a role in it. So a lot of people, even if they are formerly major fans of mine, they desperately look for any and every opportunity to catch me slipping.
Oh, can you unban me
So they
in
can
this
turn
Hans
around
chat?
and be like, "Oh, we got him. He's wrong.
Bro,
He's
just
wrong on
like
this
direct all of this
And oftentimes
attention
they
to
will
Toxic
just,
SJW, okay?
They will jump.
Toxic will help you out.
I've made them feel bad. I've made them feel stupid. So they look to any and
Perkless friend.
every opportunity that they think makes
Okay, it's not
me
gonna
look
work.
stupid and bad, regardless of legitimate ideological agreements or disagreements.
I'm
Like
stealth
that
mod, I
very
hide the
famous
sword.
Arma 3 clip is quite literally me pulling
Okay, I'll
up
be
a
back in a
tweet that
second.
someone sent me and going, wait, this looks crazy. And then me going like, wait, I think this is a video game. And they still point to it as though like, oh, he's so bad at analysis. And it's quite literally me going, I don't think this is a real video. And yet they still use it. And that was 2 fucking years ago at this point. And they still use that to be like, look at how stupid and dumb he is. And it's like, dog, I'm straight up in the fucking video saying, I don't think this is real. XQC pulls up that clip all the time. Yeah, I mean, XQC is a great example of this because XQC himself, again, doesn't have like a dog in the fight, in any of the fight, except for the fact that I got gambling banned on Twitch and I make his fans or I make him feel bad about gambling. So that's like a resentment that he's going to hold on to for the rest of his life. And he will literally fucking consistently pull the Hassan sucks ripcord regularly. Does he give a shit about fucking Israel or Palestine? Fuck no. As a matter of fact, if he looked at the situation, he would most likely have a position. I don't know what his position is, but he would most likely have a position that, like, on his own would probably not be that off base. Like, he probably looks at it and he goes, okay, well, the superior military force here shouldn't be so fucking violent, is like a position I could see him having. Or something silly. Someone said Landia.
Sorry, what?
Yeah.
What's going on? Yeah, my team is exactly identical. Yeah, I've got a meta going, okay?
It's just like, it's a good opportunity for him to just be like, oh yeah, Hassan is stupid, by the way. Don't trust him. Don't listen to him. Why? Because it's not about me giving you coverage
But look,
about
I'm changing it up.
Palestine that he is upset about.
I'm
It's
changing
the
it
other
up.
shit that I say that contradicts what he says, and he doesn't want to look like a dumbass to his audience, so you can just like negatively polarize. If you negatively polarize successfully towards someone like myself, then your audience is also geared to fucking hate me, so they're not going to listen to me when I talk about gambling. You know what I mean? Or any number of other things, like if he does something that I'm critical of, you know? That's it. Yeah, most people are just motivated not by like death and destruction and the chaos that like a foreign power, a foreign adversary, or a foreign ally is engaging in. They care about, they immediately care about making money.
Damn.
One, they care about making money, and two, drama makes a lot of money for you and gets you extra clout. So that's usually what people's interests are. That's usually where people's interests start, and that's usually where they end. And for someone like myself, I do care. I care a lot about the things that I talk about, so I always come across like a fucking clown when I get really emotional. This is something that, if you've been around for a long time, this is something that you know about the quote-unquote alt-right. Like back in the day in 2016, 2015, when this shit was popping, back in the day, everybody understood, or everybody finally came to the conclusion that the greatest strength that people have in online debate is not caring about a particular issue. That way you can so easily just move away from one position or drop it, because you don't have any genuine interest in like defending a
Yeah, it's
position.
not a winning strategy. I need to change it
So you can do
up.
that very easily, and you can always retain your distance and make yourself come across like you are an objective arbiter of the truth. If
No
you, on the
pancake?
other hand, have a
Really?
stake in the matter, a dog
Not
in
a
the
single
fight,
pancake?
something that you genuinely care about, okay, as do I with all of the issues that I cover, and especially when it comes to like Islamophobia, for example, because it does hurt my feelings, because it is the one area where like, I feel as though it's a big weakness for me. It's the one area where I don't have that same level of privilege in all the other areas as a cisgender, heteronormative man who is relatively attractive. Like, I don't usually get hit with something directly in the way that like a black commentator would, because anti-black racism is prominent. So you can always hit the anti-black racism ripcord.
Oops.
Right, against a person like that, and there will be plenty of people that are galvanized to take your position, and then
Okay.
the black.
I'm off, everyone. I'm not gonna. Well, we'll actually see who loses. It's fine.
This is something that they have experienced. You know what I mean?
No, I know. Kosi. Hassan was saying that XQC's community thinks that Hassan is one of the reasons why Twitch banned gambling.
A take a view that is aged incredibly well is the
They
internet
blame him.
Pseudo-intellectual wrestling. It is. It's theater. It's sparring. My point is, like,
What does
I have a
NT
much easier
mean?
time advocating for trans issues than a trans person, because one, most transphobic people are not going to be receptive to a trans person. Two, a trans person is going to be obviously significantly harmed by transphobia and become emotional when, when met with transphobia with an interlocutor. This is a major. It's a major bonus to the cis person that is being transphobic in a debate or in a conversation where they could just like say transphobic shit and then have the other person look kind of emotional, and to a broader audience, it will make people feel like they lost the fight because, oh, you got emotional, you lost, because most people are just watching from afar. They're just consuming it like it's content.
I need to start doing something.
The same
like this.
goes for a black person debating their own humanity, right, against a white person.
Follow my montage.
Or against a racist person in general.
Oh, don't worry, Soda Drifter. Don't worry, you didn't say something offensive. Don't worry, I was just exasperated. I don't know, like, you didn't offend me. I have a degree in physics. So it's just, like, sometimes I need to not come across passive aggressive like that. Oh, you teach college physics, okay. As well. Alright. But I think we were talking about different things, you know? No, it wasn't that. Then it was, maybe we were just missing each other. Because, like, you can't, like, yeah. Like, we were probably talking about different things. Like, I agree, like, information and stuff that, like, isn't matter can be sent forward in time. But, like, it's not, my main thing, the main way what I meant is, like, some people think, like, feasible time travel with, like, actual, like, physical, like themselves could travel forwards in time, you know? That's something that, like, should be, people need to understand is incorrect. Yeah, they wrongly blame him. Yeah. No, exactly. I didn't know. That's what I meant, Kosa. But anyway, you didn't offend me, Soda Drifter. Don't stress. I wouldn't have even associated with you. Okay, I'm gonna send you guys to Prez. And I'm having to hyperfixate on a lot of basic with students because they write off anything, even remotely science. Yeah. No, I get that. I also like teach. But yeah, you probably are much better. Anyway, I'm gonna send you guys off to Prez. I'm gonna sleep. It's sleep time for me. Prez is playing The Sims, so. Oh. Okay, and tomorrow, I'll be live very late, if I'm live at all. I'm going to Robben Island. Not Rob Ann Island, Robben Island. The island that Nelson Mandela was captive on. He was imprisoned on. My aunt, it's like a gift for my aunt's birthday, and I've never gone, so I asked if I could go. And I'll take some pictures and show you guys. It's just like a museum basically now, but it's like an entire ex-penal island. No, I will not stream it. Anyway.